and welcome to the For Fun of Knit podcast. My name is Linda, and this is my corner of the YouTube channel where I share all my knitting adventures and misadventures. I am hoping that I can just keep you company while you craft and share some of the fun of this, of frolicking with fiber. Anyway, this is not one of my traditional podcasts, so if this is your first time viewing, you might want to watch one in the past. This episode is focused really on sharing the fun that I have with my minis. I have a stash of minis that I absolutely love, but as you can see, most of it is back there. I do have lots of minis, and it's time for me to actually start knitting with them. So in order to motivate myself, and it's not a lack of motivation in terms of wanting to knit, it's just needing to know where to start. I have been participating in curating a mini collection probably for the last 4 years. It started with one of the Christmas themed advents and blossomed from there to Valentine's Day and Halloween and just some collections of minis. Minis for me are absolutely a separate hobby, yet another hobby in yarn in terms of collecting them, because the colors are so fantastic and you can explore a variety of colors in 5 little minis compared to buying 5 whole skeins. So yeah, that's kind of my excuse. But I really do want to knit with them, and I needed to give myself some sort of focus. And so what I have decided to do is do a deep dive into my mini stash and organize. And by organize, I mean group them if I want to group them, or decide on projects based on a number of different methodologies, I guess. So I don't know where I have to start yet. But this episode, I'm going to show you some video that I took a little bit in the past where I organized my minis and made some decisions about my minis. And I'm also going to share a few little tips and tricks of how I work with my minis, how I skein them up or cake them up or use them. So I'm actually going to share a few patterns that I'm currently working on that are mini focused, as well as I would love to put, or actually I have put a little bit of a library, what do they call it, a group? Is it called a group on Ravelry, where you actually have some patterns, a bundle, that's what it's called, a bundle. I've put a bundle on Ravelry under the MERRIMINIMAL bundle. And so that leads to our MERRIMINIMAL Cal, which is starting August 15th and going right until January 6, 2024. So hoping you will participate in that. And just to review, this is really a focus on helping motivate you to choosing a project to do with your collection of minis, or perhaps you're less than halfway through a minis project and really just need that motivation to finish it. This is the make along for you. You also might not have purchased minis in the past, but maybe you have scraps or leftover yarns is probably a better definition, because our MERRIMINIMAL is focused on yarn collections of 10 to 25 grams. So not really scraps per se, more minis. Now, if you have not purchased minis in the past, you can certainly put your own minis together by using your leftover yarns and just weighing off 10 to 25 grams. Can't be less than 10, can't be more than 25. That is the sort of honor system rule, because we have no way of measuring that. So this is on the honor system, because the intention of the MERRIMINIMAL is to just have projects with lots of different colors. So with that in mind, that's the MERRIMINIMAL is something I'm co-hosting with Susan of Wild Cottage Knitting, Ireland, and please check out her channel. She's got a lovely, lovely natural way on her channel, and she actually supports the Irish fiber community with growing plants for natural dyeing. So there's quite a bit of heritage work that her and her husband do. So needless to say, I'm going to go straight in and dive right into Past Linda and show you about my mini stash. So for those of you that are here for the minis, the next probably 40 minutes is all for you. For those of you that are just into the knitting, you're going to want to skip ahead, and I will put the timeline down at the bottom for you to skip ahead, because I am going to cover off my works in progress, pardon me, that include my minis, as well as an update on the blue boxy from Beth McDonald Stone. Wonderful. Enjoy the next little while as I work through my minis. See you soon. So as you know, I have these minis that are always in the background of my videos most of the time, but I have also got minis in different nooks and crannies and in a closet, etc. And so I would really like to pull them all out. We're going to do that. I'm going to show you where I've hidden them first, sort of go on a scavenger hunt of minis and scraps. And then I'm going to lay them all out on my guest bed, which I've covered with an old white blanket so that you can see them properly. And then we're going to prioritize. And I'm not too sure how I'm going to organize those minis, but you get to be along for the ride on that if this is what you're interested in. And I just thought it would be kind of fun. And some of them I'm going to keep, some of them I'm going to destash. And just to be clear, this is not about getting rid of my minis. I love my minis, but I also want to use them. And so this is just going to make more room for new minis or advents that might come in the future. So let's take a look. I'm going to flip the camera around and let's take a look at where my minis are. Okay, so let's just walk into my craft room. And I'm going to give you just a wobbly view of my craft room again. And I'm going to shut my doors because Patrick is watching the British Open. And so you've seen this backdrop before. This is the majority of my minis here. But I also started separating out at one point sparkly Stellina minis. So I've got some minis there that are all Stellina. I hope I'm not making anybody nauseous, I have minis that was a Halloween advent in that little jar. I also have some minis that I put in there for some reason, not too sure why. I must have had a plan at some point. And then where else might I have minis? I know for a fact this is fabric I'm reclaiming to do some sort of patchwork crafting, not too sure. Those are all my sock whips right there. That's my little knitting chair. There, I know I have minis in here, which I need to add to this project because I was going to make some mittens for my cousins, and this is in an I Heart You by Laura bag. So we'll put those there. In my closet behind my desk, now I'm going to show you the inside of my closet, which is generally my sewing closet. And you're not allowed to comment on the mess, but this is my sewing closet. And I have all these empty boxes, but they're not all empty. That is a Homespun House Advent that I haven't opened yet. And I do believe that those two are Advents, and I don't remember what they were. One's a Halloween, I thought, and one was a Christmas one. Oh, I should probably bring those out. So I will bring those out and into the room. And so, well, before I do that, let's just take another tour, and we're going to go into the room where this is where I am going to be placing all of the minis. So this is also where I keep the majority of my stash. If we turn around, you've seen this closet before in my destash video. This is where I have the majority of my stash. And again, full disclosure, no comment on the mess, but that is my stash. It is no longer to the ceiling. It used to be up there, but I have destashed quite a bit. I know that sounds crazy. And this yarn here, isn't this wonderful? I'm going to talk to you about that in a future video for sure. But that is my stash. Now I have already pulled out my minis from my stash cupboard, and this is what I have here. So I have, these are actually not going to be included because those are bulky weight and worsted weight scraps. Then I have all my leftovers that are partial skeins. Then I have some miscellaneous minis that are all going to be included. So that is the inventory of minis that we are working with. So now that I have sort of taken stock of where all my minis are, I'm just going to move all of them onto that bed, and I will see you when that's done. Okay, so that didn't take very long, yay. But now I have got everything out on the bed, and now I really don't even know where to start. So I think I'm just going to walk you through what I remember of what's on the bed, what minis are, and then I think I'm going to have to step back and figure out a plan of attack on how to organize them or how to prioritize them. So let's just do a quick high-level overview of what's on the bed, and like I said, then I'm going to pause, think about it, and come back to you. Okay, so there's a bird's eye view of everything that is on the bed. So let's start at the beginning. So what I have here is minis that I've acquired over time that I've organized by color. So I've got my pinks and my purples and my blues and my greens. This set of minis here was an advent from Stash Lounge, and it is a combination of all dyers across Canada, which is lovely. Not all the dyers, but a selection. I've got Full Moon Fibers, Lily & Pine, Myrtle Yarns, Ancient Arts is in there. It's a really nice selection. There was no theme other than having a selection of dyers, which is why I liked it. Then this is a mishmash of advents that I kept for sort of the browns and the woodsy colors. So some of my colors, like the pinks, the greens, the blues, the purples, are a mix of advents I've had in the past. This is a lot of Woolenberry and a lot of what was her lovely Sweet Sparrow yarns. Like all of these 10-gram minis are all Sweet Sparrow yarns. And this is predominantly Sweet Skein of mine. She had a Beatrice Potter Easter type of theme, and there might be a few Hue Locos in here, but I thought these colors would make a very nice pastel project if I ever get to it. This was a Sassy Strings advent, which was a beautiful pastel. You could do fade or not. This was a Legacy Fiber Arts, just a 12-day mini set that included some stellina and some just bright colors, which was nice. This is the Shirley Bryan set, which was an advent I got, and it came with a coordinating and graduated. You could do either a fade in her deconstructed socks or just make minis of everything that you wanted, like shorty socks. And then this beautiful group of colors is from Okanagan Dye Works, which I got at Fibers West. I couldn't resist the colors. This is an old advent from Nora Nora George yarns. And again, very, very beautiful 10-gram skeins, or 10-gram minis. So as you can see, I had a lot of advents and I love them all. I just haven't ever used them. Then I have some miscellaneous Hugh Loca ones. They're peppered throughout this. These are all the ones that have stellina that I've sort of been grouping together. This was a Trilogy Yarns Halloween Advent, which I absolutely loved. Here's some more miscellaneous. Those are the ones that I pulled out from the top of my cabinet. These are minis that I was going to make mittens out of, but decided not to for my cousins. We're going to make cowls instead. This was a mini set Advent from Ancient Arts, which is all self-striping. Very fun. I thought that was quite Halloweenish. I'm going to come back. I have got this Advent from Cottage Yarn, and I bought this from the Knitting Place, which is Dinah and Pam. They host the Knitting Place podcast, and I literally have not even opened it. There we go. And this came to me when I was in Spain. So this, if I'm not mistaken, was an Advent where you got a combination of yarns and crafty things. So I'm curious to open this. I'm wondering if I should save this until Christmas. I think I might, because look at how pretty that is wrapped. I might save that for Christmas 2023 and actually bring it with me to Spain, because this is actually, it's like making a garland. If I'm not mistaken, it was a little sweater garland or something. I can't quite remember, but that might be exciting to keep. Again, not 100% sure what I'm doing, but that again was from Cottage. And see, it's the Bohemian Rhapsody yarn calendar. So there you go. This one, now I do not know where this one is from. This is an Advent that I'm pretty sure was Halloweeny. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, well, definitely Halloween. If you looked at theirs, look at the scary Freddy, whatever his name is. I can't remember what he... Oh, yeah. No, thank you. Okay. Nightmare on Elm Street? Nightmare on... Oh, my goodness. Oh, definitely Halloween. It says Halloween. There you go. So I could wait until October, but no, I think I'm going to open this one because I won't be here in October. So let's get that one open. And then I have this one from Molly of a Homespun House. And this one, again, she sent some. Now, this one's already been on lots of people have talked about this one already. So I'm going to open it. But it comes with a garland, so that if you wanted to, like some sort of decoration, if you wanted to do a Advent project that was a garland, she gave you all the accoutrements to go with it, which I thought was very thoughtful. And then this is the main skein that it came with, which is a beautiful sort of oyster color with cranberry and purple, and it's called Cheers. So non-superwash merino fingering. Oh, I remember. This one was delayed because Homespun House I had ordered the non-superwash Advent. When the Advents had arrived, they came, the mix of fiber was half superwash, half non-superwash. And so Molly had to get a hold of all the people that had purchased the non-superwash Advent to ask if they were still interested in receiving it. And hey, of course I was. No harm, no foul. You can only do what you can do. I was hoping for a non-superwash one, but this is apparently part of it is non-superwash and part of it is superwash. So even though it says 100% non-superwash, that's not the case, according to Molly. So I think we are going to open that one and add it to the whole group and see what comes of it. Now, these aren't included. Those are 50-gram skeins. So I have some non-superwash, beautifully dyed skeins. These are worsted weight. So I'm going to hang on to those from Fleece and Harmony in the blues and the pinks. Just lovely. Thought I bought greens too, but I can't seem to find them. Then I have Ammo yarn, which was their neon, a bold rainbow. So I just love that. I love neon colors. This is from Polka Dot Creek, which was their Canada Day, if I'm not micro mini bundle, one of a kind, but I think it was part of their Canada Day theme. I also have this Christmas set from Yarn Cafe Creations that I've just been hanging on to because they're so beautiful. Look at them. They're so beautiful. And I just didn't really want to break them. And the same when it came to her fall, you know, colorways. Now this is a DK set, and I thought, oh, that would be lovely, but I just love the colors. This is a set from Sweet Skein of Mine as well, and I can't remember if this was a Valentine's or if this was an Easter. Not 100% sure. And now I get into just a mishmash of leftover skeins and remnants of my own yarn that I turned into skeins. Like this is Hedgehog Fibers Guppy in 20 gram little minis. And then I've got little balls, you know, I've got some old row 1 yarn pieces that I've had. I've got little balls of yarn here and there. See, I've got some more miscellaneous skeins. And lastly, I'm not going to unpack this, but these are my partial skeins from leftovers from all of my sock knitting, etc. So this is the entire enchilada. If you can see it, I don't know if I can get you back far enough to see the whole enchilada, but let me tell you, we got some yarn. And so now I need to regroup and figure out how I want to organize or prioritize these beautiful, beautiful gems of yarn. Funny thing about the Halloween Advent. So obviously there was a 12 or 13 day option and then a 31 day option. I must have chosen the 13 day because I got 13 skeins except for day number 5 was missing. Don't ask me. And then I got day 31. So not too sure, but look at these. Aren't these fun? This is why I love getting minis. So now I don't know what to do with them, but adding to the Halloween stash. So just going to put them back on the bed and figure out what we're going to do with them. And I also now have a load of candy. Yay, sugar. Okay, so I am sitting here looking over everything. I have taken a really good look at my skeins, my minis, and I can do this a couple ways, I guess. I could do it by advent. In other words, I could make decisions saying, I'm going to keep the advents as they were or the collection as they were and pick a project specific for the use of one advent at a time or one collection. So keep them all separate. I could organize them by color like I've kind of done with some of them. I'm still undecided on exactly what to do, but I know for a fact there's some colors in my miscellaneous minis that don't really appeal to me. They're not my color palette. So I might want to go through and decide what am I going to keep and what am I going to give away or destash, I guess. And it's not that I want to get rid of my minis. Again, I just want to make room for more of the ones that I love. So now that you've seen the whole videos of me going through my mini stash, I thought it might be fun to just see where I landed. So this is 95% of all my minis now. There's just a couple left in the other room that I still have to decide, but I just thought I would quickly go over where I ended up. So I kept my pinks, I kept my blues, I kept my reds and whites. I mixed both the neon packages, so that was the Okanagan Dye Works and the Ammo yarns. They were all my neons, kept those as a package. Kept my greens, kept my purples. This is the Legacy Fiber Arts one that is all the nice brights. I kept that. I separated some minis out of some of the Advents and ended up with some really nice, peachy corally kind of colors that I thought really went nicely together. Do I know what we're going to do with them? No, we do not know what we're going to do with them. But those are those. Then we've got, these are the few skeins that I kept from the Shirley Bryan colorways, the deconstructed fades. The colors that I really liked were the purples and the pinks with a little bit of blue, but most of the blue-green ones I am going to be destashing. I kept my Ancient Arts self-striping, and these are really fun. I absolutely am going to make, so these are the self-striping ones. They come in all different versions of self-striping, a lot of fun. These ones I am going to be making leg warmers for Halloween, so in very funky colors, and I might add some other bright, like an orange, like a couple solids in here to really bring out the Halloween feel. But I love these. This is the other Halloween, the Mystery Halloween package that I had, and so I might be joining some of these up just to make those leggings. And there's a pattern that has leggings that is like really a lot of fabric. It's in DK weight, so I can double these up, which will make a lot of fun. And it's just a whole bunch of, I think it's 2x2 rib, but just to make some nice Halloween leggings. And then this is the Trilogy Yarns. This was actually the Practical Magic Halloween kit that I actually got, and it was a collaboration between Trilogy Yarns, Nancy of Trilogy Yarns, and Joanna of Stitching the High Notes. And again, it was called the Practical Magic. I love it. For this skein, I would like to make, or this colorway, I would like to make a sweater or a shawl or like a cape. And at one point I found a pattern, I can't find it anymore, but I found a cape that would go really well. And this particular, what's the word I'm looking for? This particular color, Advent, came with this beautiful big skein from Trilogy Yarns, and it was called Practical Magic, and it's just stunning. So that is sort of definitely a keeper there. And then for these ones, this is my Sassy Strings 10-gram mini set in sort of the solid tonals. This was the Eastery sort of spring, really pastel ones from Sweet Skein of Mine. And this is my homespun house. All of these are going to be used to make a Battenberg blanket. So I have decided that's what I'm going to do with those. All I need to get now, I'm going to do a full-size Battenberg blanket. So all I need now is the contrasting yarn for the edges. And I might have to buy something. However, the Battenberg blanket comes with a cream sort of trim around all of it. And I do have these two skeins that are very similar in color. This one has a little bit, this one is from Akara yarns. It's coming apart. The skein is coming apart, and it has a little bit of speckling in it. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sure about that. The speckling is so tiny. It's just a little bit. It's very pretty. It's got a little bit of gray running through it here and there, but it's predominantly cream. And I thought I might be able to do something with this one where I am alternating it, because you need 1,200 yards of a contrasting color to do the trim around the blanket. And so I would have 1,200 yards if I use this, and this is a luxury. So this is called Butt Naked Luxury Sock, which is superwash merino cashmere nylon. And so again, very similar colorways. I could alternate those. That gives me almost the right amount. And then I could use Molly's Homespun House. Whoops. And this is the Cheers colorway that went with her Advent. So I could do this as all the inner trim, absolutely all the inner trim between all the squares, and probably one row around the outside of the blanket, and then I could finish it off with this. So I'll see how that goes. I'm hoping not to have to buy yarn for trim, and I have these skeins anyway, so we'll have to see how that works, but that's sort of the idea. But so I have plans, which is great. So I definitely have a plan for this, a plan for this, a plan for this. These would now be the minis that are sort of still available to me to have some sort of a fun project. And I'm thinking the neons will be my next. I'll put some thought towards the neons to see what I can do with the neons. So, okay. It's the end of the day, and I just wanted to share a few tips and tricks that I have when sort of managing my mini stash or even my scraps. So first and foremost, what I would recommend is if you have scraps, skein them up into minis. So maybe you've never bought an Advent or ever bought individual minis. Take the time to take your scraps and wind them into a mini that looks very similar to a store-bought mini. So usually 20 grams. You can do 10 grams. I just find that those are a little harder to skein up. You can still do it. And I'll show a little video here of me actually skeining up some of my scraps into a mini. So this is a perfectly wound mini. This is a store-bought mini. This is one of the Shirley Bryan minis that I got in an Advent. And so minis will come in different shapes and sizes. Here's another one. You can see it's much thicker, but same yardage. It's just a different weight of yarn, and how they have twisted it is a little bit different. So I am looking to change some of my scraps into 20-gram minis for the MERRIMINIMAL. So scraps do count, but the maximum you can use is 20 to 25 grams, or from 10 to 25 grams. And so what you're going to need is you're going to need your scrap yarn, a measuring tape, a scale, and with my scale, it's not always accurate. Sometimes you have to weigh it, turn it on and turn it off and reweigh it, and some sort of a swift. Now, if you don't have a yarn swift, by all means, you can just roll it into a ball, but you definitely will need the scale. That is the biggest piece of equipment for this mini-mal. So first of all, what I do is I turn on my scale and weigh my yarn. So now I know my starting point. I have 55 grams in this skein. Well, for the mini-mal, the max you can use is 25 of a scrap. So then I extend my swift to 17 inches end to end. So 17 inches from the inside end, and so I'm going with my measuring tape in between the rungs, and I want it to get 17 and a half inches. that gives me the approximate size of a purchased mini. For example, this is one that I skeined up of a leftover, and I love that color. Isn't that beautiful? So then what I do is I take one of the ends of yarn and I tie it with just a loop that you can pull out. So just a slip loop along the side. And then what I do is I start to skein up, and I usually pull from the middle or from the outside. It doesn't really matter, but in this case, I guess I've chosen the middle. And you get a little bit of a yarn. In my case, you always get a little bit of yarn mess to start with before it gets going. And then you just skein up until you have 20, I like to have a 20 gram mini skein as opposed to 25. So if I started with 55 grams, I want to end up with 35 grams. And it's saying 35. So 3 grams, so I'm going to turn my scale off. I don't know if you ever have to do this. Clear your scale. Off. Back on. Make sure it says 0. Okay, so now I have 32. I've got too much on my mini skein, so now I have to pull it back. This is kind of a process, as you can imagine. Excuse my summer casual attire, but come back here. My scale failed me this time. Of course, it always happens during a demonstration. But as soon as I get back, okay, I'm back to 35 grams on my scale, which theoretically means I've got 20. Yeah, that's 0. Close enough. It's like splitting hairs between 34 and 35. So now I'm going to cut the end. Come over here. And I find my lovely little loop that was just a slip knot. And I undo it. And then what I'm going to do is tie these. Now, you could go straight from your scale to your ball winder, where you cake your yarn, and just do it right into a little cake. But because I don't know when I'm going to use this mini, I like to prep it as if it were an actual store-bought mini. And so I wrap one of the yarns around and halfway through, then back around again and tie it off. And I tend to only do one tie on a mini. I mean, some people might do 2, I only do 1. Then I grab the entire piece of yarn, gently lift it off, and then I twist. And when you're twisting, I put it between my 2 fingers, if you can see that, and I go in opposite directions until it's quite tight on my fingers, because as soon as you let it go, it loosens up. And I find that I probably have to do it a couple more times in order for it to be snug enough to create a mini. And then you just take the one end and pull it over the other, fiddle with it until it's nice and pretty. But see, this one's too loose. See, I can already see, even though it was snug on my fingers, it's too loose. So I'm going to do that again. I don't like that. I like it to be, so I'm doing it again, opposite directions, twisting my hands in opposite directions. Now I can tell it's still going to be too loose. So I'm going to wind this, each end a couple more times. And then I'm going to loop one end over the other, and then fiddle. Fiddle, 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 fiddle. There we go. Okay, now I have something that resembles an actual store-bought mini. And that is 20 to 21 grams, depending on the accuracy of your scale. And again, there you go. So you can make your own advents, you can make your own minis for the sake of the Merry Mini Mal. Tip number 2 in managing your minis is to put color combinations together. For example, if you've got minis or you've got these scraps of minis that you have created skeins yourself, look at those. Aren't those lovely? Those are all from scraps. What I like about doing this is that then if you have any yarn left over after you've created your own mini collection, that can be used for scrappy socks and scrappy projects. But minis have a category all their own. And say you have minis that you don't know what to do with. In other words, you've just got this combination of minis. What I like to do, and I'm going to apologize for the crinkling first, is tip number 2 is I like to, when I'm playing with my yarn, put some color combinations together to make socks. So these are minis that did not come from the same set, if you can believe that, nor the same dyer. And you can actually put some beautiful combinations together for yourself. So when it comes time to knitting a pair of socks or having a little bit of a color work project, you already have some beautiful minis set aside that actually are coordinated, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to go in search of, oh, well, what minis go well together? Or maybe I could do a fade, or what do I have? So you don't need to actually have bought minis to do this. You can, sorry for the crinkling, you can actually skein up your own yarn and create that mini stash for yourself. The third thing that I would say is, well, that was, I guess, the second thing. No, that was the second thing. The third thing I would say is once you have decided on a project with minis, and whether it takes 2 minis or 6 minis or 20 minis, cake them all up. There's nothing worse than losing some of your momentum when, I don't know about you, but caking up yarn is not my favorite thing to do. Playing with it, choosing the colors, absolutely. I don't even mind creating mini skeins using my Swifter, so I did show you that before. But caking it, I hate that part. So what I recommend is pre-plan, cake all your minis in advance, pour yourself a cup of coffee, put on a good movie, whatever works, and just cake up all those minis. That way you'll have these beautiful little gems, and they'll look, put them in a container where you can see them. So you can see the play of colors and enjoy all the goodness of your minis before you start. That'll keep you motivated to keep going with your minis. The last tip that I have when you're dealing with your minis is sometimes you've just got minis you don't know what to do with. Put them into an I-cord. Make a long I-cord and knit a blanket or something, and I'll show you that. This is, and I've showed this before, this is the start of my I-cord blanket, and I will show a little clip here of how I use my Prim I-cord cranker. I don't know what the term is called, but it's an I-cord maker, and it is a little fussy, so I'm just going to go through some of what I do to make it easier. But this shows you, this is my Christmas, all my Christmas yarns that are scraps. These are scraps, not minis. As you can see, look at this vibrant. This was leftovers. So I'm just putting in all my Christmas yarns that I have less than 10 grams or sometimes less than 20, because to me, I like 20-gram minis. I don't know. Because if you have 4 20-gram minis, that's enough to make a pair of socks. So, but less than that, it's going into a scrappy project like this I-cord blanket, which I've talked about in a previous episode. And so I'll just show you how I cranked my I-cords right now. One of the tricks that I have, or one of the uses I have for my scraps or my minis, is to put them into a blanket, and in this case, an I-cord blanket, which I have shown before. But this is a 25-gram piece of leftover sock yarn. It was a Christmas colorway by Timber Yarns called, oh, it was called Silver Bells. Anyway, so this is the Prim I-cord maker. It, generally speaking, I don't know if you can see it, you might want to zoom up your camera or zoom up your screen to see, but there are 4 little hooks that go around in a circle, catching the yarn through a little groove up at the top here. And this weight, it comes with a weight, and the weight you attach to the bottom, and it pulls the I-cord down as you're cranking. So I've done this a couple times now, and what I find, you're supposed to take your yarn and feed it through the tube and drop it down and then attach it to the weight. For some reason, the yarn never goes down for me. So what I have to do is make a loop in the yarn, attach it to a small circular needle, however I can do that, just the tip, and then my tip of my circular needle goes down all the way through, and then I'm able to grab the yarn. So yay, that's the first thing accomplished. Then I do another loop in the yarn and I hook it. I don't know if you can see, but there's a cross pattern. The weight is cut into 4 pieces at one end. It's a circular at one end, and it's got almost like a star screwdriver look at the other end. So I feed the yarn through, I try to feed the yarn through, and I hook it on in between the grooves so that it will hang on its own in this loop. Now I tend to put this aside for the moment. Still attached, but I put it aside. Now I have to attach the 4 hooks. So this is where my trusty little circular needle comes in again, because this is the part that takes patience and is a little bit finicky. As the circular needles go around, it's supposed to, this tall needle here is supposed to capture one yarn, and you're supposed to feed that one, skip the next hook, feed the third hook that comes in, skip the 4th hook, and then redo this first hook one more time. So let me just say that again. So you have 4 hooks. What you're supposed to do is allow the yarn to get caught by hook number 1, skip hook number 2, get caught by hook number 3, skip hook number 4, and then re-feed hook number 1 again. But what I find is it always drops the yarn, it won't stay. So I use this needle to pull up the little tongue on the hook, and you might not be able to see it, but you'll definitely know what I mean once you get one of these. And then from that point on, you can start hooking every hook once you get that in play. And so then, oops, you have to go around a couple of times and it will feed itself. And now I drop the hook, drop the weight, pardon me, and I continue to crank. And it should now, there we go. Now it has caught itself. There is a feeder at the back. And now it's just a matter of cranking. And as you can see, it's going to wobble as I do this. I hope you can see what I'm doing. But now you just crank it until you see the I-cord coming out at the bottom. And I'm going to show that to you in a minute. Now you can see my whole bookcase is moving. It does create a bit of a motion, but I just want to make sure that this I-cord is coming out properly. And don't worry if the first few stitches are wrong or you've skipped one. It will eventually catch all 4 hooks and start to crank in a perfect I-cord. Now, some people have figured out how to remove this handle, stick a drill, and do it and crank it with a drill. I have yet to figure that out. So I tend to just crank it. It's a slow motion or a slow craft, I guess. But let me just crank it a little bit and I'll show you the outcome. One thing I should note is as the cord is coming out, it twists. So your weight at the bottom needs to be off the ground so that it can untwist the I-cord. Because it is spinning around, I guess, inside the way that it's weaving together, it does create a high twist. So you need to be able to make sure that that weight is free to fall down to the ground. I recommend that you put your I-cord cranker somewhere up high, sort of at a nice comfortable arm length, but so that you have enough space for your I-cord to drop freely. And what happens is once my I-cord is of a certain length, and so you can see I'm getting some nice I-cord here. This is a self-striping yarn, so it's going to change colors. All you do is you move the I-cord up, or pardon me, you move the weight up the cord, and then you hook it in one of the grooves, and then it will just hang on to itself. When I've got so much I-cord that it's hanging on the bottom, I need to roll this up so I can keep going. You need to roll up from the bottom towards the actual weight and use this long end to secure it into a ball or some sort of form where you can tie it off and it will hold, because you don't want it falling on the ground. You need to keep space for the I-cord to continue to drop. So that way, you just see how, I don't know if you can see, but you can see the I-cord is turning around, it's twisting, and it twists quite a bit. So it needs space to do that. So let's remove this yarn. Let's remove this candle out of the way so that it can twist freely. I don't know if you can see it twisting below my hand there, but it's turning around in a circle. Okay, so that is all the content about minis, and now I'm going to talk about my finished object, a work in progress, one work in progress, two works in progress, I think, three works in progress actually. And aside from the boxy blue that I'm about to show you, everything else is minis oriented. And this is very specifically because we're having the MERRIMINIMAL starting August 5th. So my very first my one and only finished object for this episode is this beautiful crocheted bag. Don't you love it? Oh, my hair is woven into it, of course. I made this out of minis. Yes, this is all minis, and it is called the Scrappy Basket bag. Then I'll put a picture up here. I made this in less than 5 hours. It is using a 9mm hook, and you basically blend as whatever size yarn you want, but the bigger the better, so the thicker the better. Mine, I used 5 minis, all different colors. You can see it changes all the time. You create a circle at the bottom, and then you just literally, it's double crochet all the way up. That's how I did mine. I deviated a little bit from the pattern, but I just wanted it simple. And then you make these great little handles, and it makes a great bag or project bag. And again, a great gift for minis. This is also a scrappy project, whatever you like. But I used 5 minis held together to do this, but you can use bulky yarns. You can mix tweed yarns. You can do anything you want. You just want a super bulky weight in order to use the 9mm hook. And I actually probably could have used 2 more minis, so held 7 strands together, just to make sure I didn't have such a loose chain construction. It would have been a little sturdier had I used 7. So if you're trying to use those minis, you can certainly create a beautiful project in, I'm going to say, just 2 nights of crochet, or, you know, if you wanted to do it all day, you might. I don't know, 5 hours is a lot, but certainly a project. I love it. It is absolutely so much fun. And again, just using minis that I didn't know what to do with. So yay me, finished object in record time. So finished objects, that was it. I haven't made any progress on anything else that's even near close to finished. Oh my goodness. So let's go on to works in progress. I'll talk first about the Boxy Blue by Beth McDonald Stone. I can't say enough about this. I'm absolutely loving it. This I'm doing the size 2. For the most part, you use for the size, actually for all the sizes, you use a 4mm, 4.5, and a 5mm needle throughout the pattern. It is intended to be a super relaxed bougie sweatshirt, quite boxy and blousy. And I have now separated for the sleeves, and I am loving, let me hide my little detail here. I am loving the garter ribbing on the sides. So the garter ribbing is how the raglans are defined, and it starts right from the neck and goes all the way down. As you can see, it's going to be nice and boxy. And that garter on both sides gets continued all the way down the side of the sweater. I love that detail. And then it's going to be a split hem with wide ribbing. I'll show you the picture up here. You saw it last time. But so I have, oh, I love this. And I am knitting it in the Sabri 2, the Illimani Sabri 2, which is their worsted weight, 85% cotton, 15% alpaca. I can't say enough about this. This is dreamy to work with. It is light in terms of weight. I think the alpaca is going to give it a little bit of warmth, but the breathability of the cotton is what really appeals to me. And as I said, I have separated for the sleeves already, and it is just flying along. It is wonderful. I am going to knit all the way until I have to start separating for the ribbing, and then I'm going to stop. And then I'm going to knit both sleeves until I get to the ribbing. And then actually I'll probably end up finishing both sleeves first and then doing the ribbing, because it's back and forth once you split, and doing the ribbing the last. But absolutely loving it. I can't recommend it enough. It's coming out. I do believe she's going to launch it in early September, so I've got to get a move on, so I've got to keep knitting this, but I'm absolutely loving it. It is a very potato chippy knit, great for in front of the TV or while I'm in the car when I'm not driving. And yeah, absolutely love it. So Beth, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think I said that before, but absolutely loving it. So stay tuned for that. And that, of course, is being housed in my brand new project bag that I crocheted on the weekend. So there you go. So that is my work in progress number 1. Now the next works in progress, sorry. I need coffee. My next works in progress are 100% scrappy. Not scrappy, pardon me, mini. So I am taking mini skeins that I don't know what to do with, and I have caked them all up, well, the majority of them. These ones are the last of which you saw me going through, which I didn't know what I wanted to do with, was the Nora George minis. And so what I did is I skeined them all up, plus a whole bunch others, and I have dedicated those to my scrappy blanket. You've seen this before. I'm not going to go in detail, but this is also a great project, and I will put the picture up. Just going to try and find the picture so I remember what the name of this project was. But this project is the Granny Stripe Blanket by Green Letter Day. And it's my version of it because I forgot part of the pattern, but I'm trying to show you, get my hook. I am using a 4.5 millimeter hook. The pattern says you can cast on as much as you like. It calls for 190 cast on chains, but I did 300. So mine is a little bit longer. And what am I trying to show you here? I am trying to show you where I left off. Oh my goodness, there we go. So this is where I left off the last time, right here. And this is from this purple stripe up is the Nora George, Advent. So I just want to show you those colors. They're just beautiful. So this purple, this variegated, this beautiful apple blossomy colors, peaches, and now it's going a little bit into green. And as you can see, that's sort of the theme that's going in for the rest of those minis. So I've got about 6 more of the Nora George minis. And what I love about this blanket so far, which is a totally unintended thing, I have not woven in all my ends. I've woven in most of them. That is one of the things I do. I weave in the ends as I go. So I've got about 5 rows where I've got to weave in the ends. But this is the blanket at one end, and this is the blanket at the other end. And as you can see, they are totally different. It's like having 2 totally different blankets. And again, in the middle, you will see that it is different yet again. So at no point, I'll just show you one end, at no point does it mirror itself. So in the middle, you get all one row of each color. On the ends, you get 2 rows of almost each color, depending on when you're changing yarns. But this is just the Granny Stripe blanket by Green Letter Day. And again, I'm loving it. And I've again knit pretty much from here, or not knit, pardon me, I've crocheted from here all the way. So lots of work left to do on this, and this is one, it's nowhere near 50% done. So for the Merry Minimal, this is going to be something that I work on. So looking forward to that. And these are some of the minis that get to go into this blanket because, hey, that's what it's all about. Okay, another option for using your minis is totally different, but this is the Smitten Mitten pattern. And the Smitten Mitten pattern is by Emily Ivy. And this, I've only done 8 mittens. This is a long-standing whip. You're supposed to make 24. I've made 8. It's a garland, a mitten garland pattern. But it's absolutely lovely. Excuse me for reaching over again. It's absolutely lovely. Each one of these mittens, now I have to, true transparency. The pattern is for a worsted weight yarn knit on 3 millimeter or 3.5 millimeter DPNs. I use Magic Loop on mine. I did use, I do believe, the same needle size. I used a 3 millimeter needle, but I used fingering weight, not worsted weight. So my mittens are much smaller than what the pattern calls for. But there's method to my madness. So each mitten takes 5 grams of yarn. So when I have a 20-gram mini, it makes 4 mittens. 4 mittens divides nicely by 24. So 6 different colors, but I'm making more. And this is going to be a garland for my Christmas tree, and I'm going to put chocolates. Probably, you know, what are they called? The lint ball chocolates in all around my tree. So that is what I'm doing, but I love them. You get to have such a fun sense of color for all the minis. That's a pretty one. Look at that speckled one. Oh, that's so much fun. And then you get your tonals. Who doesn't like a good tonal? That one's a little odd looking. And there you go, another tonal. But that is called the Smitten Mitten Garland by Emily Ives. So that is work in progress. Don't ask me what number, but it's a work in progress. And again, so when it comes to the Merry Mini Mal, this might be something that I'm continuing on in the month of December and trying to get that garland up and running. Don't forget Stephen West's Knit Along is happening in October, so I'm going to be doing a lot of things. If I can incorporate minis into Stephen West's, ooh, that's a thought. Maybe I could do my project completely in minis. I can't wait to find out what his yarn recommendations are. The Stephen West Mystery Knit Along. I'm in it to win it, you bet. So another thing that I am working on, so what was that? That was my, oh no, I think that's all that I'm working on. Those are my works in progress. Nope, I have one more, I lied. So of course, traditionally for the Merry Mini Mal, scraps are absolutely allowed as long as they're 10 to 25 grams. And you're not using, you know, like a 50-gram ball of yarn. And we certainly didn't want just minis that, you know, did socks, cuffs, and toes, because that's everyday sock knitting. However, there's nothing stopping you from making a beautiful striped sock with minis. So this is a bunch of minis that I put together. They're not related at all, but they were in greens. These are my St. Patty's Day socks. They will not count. I am not including these because this one, it's over half done. So it can't be 50% done. But I just wanted to show you that these are all minis. So this is a mini, that's a mini, that's a mini, that's a mini, and they're identical on both socks. And this mini, it's the same as that mini. I've just now got to do the heel of this one and the cuff. And the fun thing about this sock is it's the first time that I did short rows to raise the heel so that my sock didn't sit like this on my foot. It actually sat like that. So again, this is me trying to get my shadow wrap heel to actually fit my foot. So, but I just wanted to give you that idea that you can absolutely still do socks for the Merry Mini Mal. It just has to be a combination of minis, not just for toes, heels, and cuffs. So again, this is on the honor system. And again, all the details of the Merry Mini Mal will be below this video. So if I haven't covered a question, or you've got questions about the Mal, by all means, you can email me at forthefunofknit.vlog, and I will happily answer all of your questions. Or you can DM me on Instagram as well, and that's for the Fun of Knit with 2 T's on Instagram. Or you can get a hold of Susan at Wild Cottage Knitting. But anyway, so that is my work. Those are, pardon me, bad English. Oh my goodness. Those are my works in progress that involve minis. So I think that is everything knitting related. I don't have a lot for chatter this evening, other than to say I'm so excited about this weekend. We are going, me and my knitting peeps, my besties, are going to Flock Fiber Festival in Seattle. We're leaving on Friday. We're staying all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and 2 of us are staying until Monday. So we're looking so forward to that. We are so excited. This is our first sort of, we're calling it a retreat. So we're going to have a blast, and I will absolutely fill you in all the details in my next video. But getting things prepared, yeah. I have picked up, and I just received my Happy Mail that included all the colors of the dyes that I ordered. So these are the Jacquard dyes, and I bought them at the Dharma Trading Company. So a lot of you had questions about how we dye the yarn. And oh, speaking of the dyed yarn, I have to confess that hot pink yarn, while it was my yarn and it was my intention to dye that yarn, I didn't actually dye that yarn. My girlfriend Jackie, who's the artist who I talked about, she actually dyed it for me because I had to leave. And so she kept adding the hot fuchsia to it, and it just turned out spectacular. And I've since dyed a skein as well, and I have to dye 2 more. So it's a joint effort, but the actual color she ended up producing to start off with. But we loved it so much, so much, that we're going to continue to dye just playfully. And I have to now order some more yarn to actually dye, because I don't want to dye all my cream yarn that I actually purchased for a specific purpose. So I do have some cream yarn. I don't want to dye it all. So looking forward to that. And other than that, that's all I've got for the chitter chatter today. I look forward. I hope all of you are having a good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. And I hope that you're seriously enjoying your fiber crafting as much as I have been. And if you can join us for the Merry Mini Mal, that would be fantastic. And look forward to hearing from all of you in that regard. And other than that, I will talk to you very soon. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in a couple weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.